We play a lot of games and yes, we cause a little fuss. They shouted who's to blame, we shouted back it wasn't us. We dance and laugh and drink and fall, you get no bread with one meanwhile. And they all know who we are, the Meatball Mafia.
Place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
We play a lot of games and yes, we cause a little fuss. They shouted who's to blame, we shouted back it wasn't us. We dance and laugh and drink and fall, you get no bread with one meanwhile. And they all know who we are, the Meatball Mafia.
Good evening, folks. How's everyone doing? You seen the title? I'm not doing great. Didn't sleep well last night. Been doom scrolling a lot, and I decided I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to come on stream. I wanted to record a video because every now and then, when stuff like this happens, it deeply upsets me. It's really easy to get desensitized to stuff. The first time I ever got really upset about something even remotely comparable was, to put in perspective how desensitized we've come, was the first time I'd ever seen footage of someone being killed. For those who are around my age and older, you'll probably remember the first time that you saw that. Not like news footage of a natural disaster like an earthquake. But for me, it was a guy called Eric Garner. Eric Garner was the I Can't Breathe guy. He was a black man in America. I can't remember what he was doing wrong selling. He was selling something he shouldn't be. Not like heroin, but like bottles of water or cigarettes or something, but he didn't have a permit for it. And the police choked him. And he said, "I can't breathe," and they didn't let go. And that footage was everywhere. And around that time, there had been a few things floating around Facebook and stuff of the police killing unarmed black people. But I hadn't seen them. I don't want to. Why would I want to see that? And I was sitting in an airport and the news was on, and that's when I saw the Eric Garner thing, which I had avoided until that point, and then I saw it. And it was horrific, and I'll never forget it. And since then, there's been so much on social media and stuff to some of my younger friends. Hey, Missy, good to see you, friend. Some of my younger friends, this might seem bizarre because you've probably always grown up seeing horrific stuff like that, and it's so easy to become desensitized because of that. But we shouldn't. People shouldn't get murdered. Like, most people agree with that. And every now and then, like with the George Floyd thing, like with what's happening right now. Thank you so much for the subscription, Ava. Every now and then something happens that reminds you how important it is to speak up. I'm good with my words. I have been for a long time. I've made a living off of my words. And so I think with that comes an obligation to use them. Now, whether people listen or it changes any minds, that's, to some extent out of my hands. But to not say anything is hard. For those who might not know, I'm sure everyone does. The UK, I say the UK, England, and I believe Ireland have had some really horrible riots going on lately. It started, we could get into how it started, but if we're going along the story, what these monsters and morons, what they're claiming is that they are protesting because 3 little girls got killed by a young black boy who was born in the UK, and his parents are from Rwanda. So he's British born and Christian, but we'll come back to that. Because right-wing agitators and grifters, which anyone who's been in this stream before or talked to me personally will know, is something I rant about a lot. Your Ben Shapiro's, your Jordan Petersons, all these kind of people that I don't think they believe in most of the things they say. Look at someone like Piers Morgan as a great example of that, as someone who was a right-wing agitator for a long time and now sort of hops on either side of the fence depending on what he's wanting to do, because he's articulate and he's engaging and he can make a lot of money doing that. But he's flip-flopped on loads of stuff because he doesn't actually believe any of it, because that's not the point. Your Daily Wire people, like, don't get me wrong, the people that follow these people, a lot of them do believe it. A lot of them do have, you know, sexist, racist, homophobic, anti, you know, Islam, all these horrible things. A lot of people do believe that. But the people that are pushing this stuff, they don't. It's a grift. They're doing it for money. If you look into most of them, you'll find out that they used to try and make money on left wing, especially these YouTubers. They used to try and be left wing entertainers, and then they didn't make it. They're failed actors, failed comedians, whatever. But there's money to be made. Jordan Peterson's another great example that I know a lot about, because I used to defend Jordan Peterson quite a lot. Not because I agreed with him on pretty much anything, but because I felt bad for him. I felt like he was someone that got pushed to the forefront of right-wing talking points that he wasn't qualified in, nor did he super care about it. But because he's so used to being respected as an intellectual, he got put into these positions, and people loved it when he would go on and destroy a woke feminist. And because of some of his actions, there were consequences, because we have freedom of speech, not freedom of consequence. He kind of got chastised out from his job as a psychologist, psychiatrist, and as a result realized that, hey, I can make a lot of money sponging off of Joe Rogan's audience. How's it going? You good to see, Brando? You good to see? Good to see you. Are you good? And it's good to see you. Don't worry, I can get rid of them, I think. That's block list. Cool. So yeah, I used to feel sorry for him, because I believed that he was forced into a position to talk about things he wasn't able to. And I think I like to believe that he was a moral person who had some views that I found really distasteful, to put it mildly. But then felt cornered into a position where his only means of making a living was to appeal to the lowest common denominator kind of thing. And so he stopped talking as much about caring about men's mental health, which was a really good thing he used to do a lot of. That was his main shtick before, you know, he started with the anti-trans stuff. And again, for those who don't know, when he started the anti-trans stuff, it wasn't about hatred of trans people. And he said many times that, oh, if someone asked me to call them by their preferred pronoun, I would. That's common decency. His argument initially was just that the government shouldn't make it a law. They shouldn't say you must do this. It should be about freedom, and people should be free to do the right thing. But as if you've heard anything he's said or seen any of his tweets in the last 5-6 years, you'll have seen that nugget of who he was before he was famous has completely gone. So these people do this. And again, if all of this is news to you, or you're curious about your favorite alt-right grifter, go look them up. There's a lot of information. Tucker Carlson, even, like all these people, grifters, they're liars. And most of the time when I've talked about them before, it's been because to laugh at them, to maybe counter some of their things. I've done a few videos where, you know, we watch some of them and poke fun, because again, their arguments aren't actually good if you know how arguments work. You're people like Steven Crowder with his, you know, I hate women, change my mind, whatever his argument is, and change my mind. And he goes incredibly well prepared with a full TV crew to talk to college students who are trying to improv against him. And he still ends up losing half those debates. But the point is that the techniques they use are dishonest. It's all about getting the viral clip so you can say someone's owned or destroyed because it makes money. That's all it's about. I really want to believe that it's not for evil. I really find it hard to believe that it's genuinely their thoughts because a lot of these guys, it's not all guys, but it's a lot of guys. A lot of them are quite intelligent and informed. And I find it very, very improbable that they haven't seen the jumps in logic they make and the gaps in their arguments. So I think instead it's a performance, right? And again, I believe this with a lot of confidence because I'm a very good debater. I'm very good at arguing. And I know I could win a discussion. I could do the Steven Crowder thing and go to like a college campus and win arguments that I don't believe in. Just because I'm good at wrapping people up in my words and pushing them into corners and stuff. It's a skill. It's got nothing to do with whether or not you're correct. As any of my friends who know me well will agree, because most of my friends are smarter than I am. And they have all got stories where they've got incredibly frustrated because they're trying to debate me on something, especially when I was younger, and I would play devil's advocate, meaning I would just argue with whatever people said. Because I found it fun. I didn't think about how much I was upsetting the other person. It was awful. I don't do that anymore. But it's incredibly frustrating, as I've heard from people closest to me. Shut up, Ava. No, I don't. I'm grown. I have no flaws now. No, I of course I still do it sometimes. I do it much less than I used to, though. Especially about important things. Especially when I can tell someone's got skin in the game, you know? But I understand how frustrating it can be to feel like you can't get your point across when you know that you're right. It's also why it's difficult to be in the position I'm in right now, because I want to believe that a lot of these people that are going on these riots, protests, I want to believe that a lot of them can be reached. I don't believe anyone's born racist, but we are all born stupid. And I think there's a really good argument to be made that this is not only a direct result of right-wing grifters, but also of a complete neglect of the working class and the education system. That people can get to the point where they believe these things because they saw Tommy Robinson say it on Twitter. That's a failing. And once they get to the position where they believe that, it's very, very difficult to change someone's mind. And it's even harder if you patronize them and call them a moron, again, because a lot of them aren't very good at arguing. We're going to watch a little thing in a second of a clip I saw earlier of a guy phoning into a radio show. And he sounds so stupid because his position and his beliefs are stupid. But it's very difficult to argue with that. It's very difficult to get your point across when someone believes so wholeheartedly that they're right, even when it's nonsense. But I'm really angry at the grifters. Like I say, I used to watch them. I used to sort of laugh it off to an extent. But there's consequences to this stuff, and we're seeing that now, right? I believe that a lot of them did it for money. Your Tommy Robinsons, your Tates, Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, the whole Daily Wire lot, all these people, they're grifters, they did it for money. I think it's immoral that they don't care about the stuff they're peddling. They're anti-trans, they're misogyny, all this stuff. I think it's immoral that they are willing to push these ideologies simply for profit. But I choose to at least entertain the idea that they are ignorant to the effects it can have. I believe that a lot of people who rant about trans women in sports, if you were to ask them dead on, look into their soul, they don't want real trans people being hurt. That's not their intention, right? And that's how this radicalization happens, is someone says something that sounds reasonable when you don't have the information, but attached to the butt of that is all this other stuff, right? So if you say to someone, remember, most people were not as informed on trans issues at all. Not like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. This is really, really recent. And so if you say to someone that's not informed in that, doesn't have any trans friends, that like, do you think it's okay for a male boxer to beat up a woman boxer? I don't think it's unreasonable that a lot of people would say, no, I don't think that's okay. In fact, I think that's the expected response from most people. And I don't think everyone that believes that is therefore evil or bigoted. They're just misinformed. And they don't think about the effects that's going to have because they think about them personally. They're like, well, that doesn't mean I'm going to go and attack trans people. Of course not. But there's consequences to this stuff because there is a lot attached to the butt of it, right? It's not everyone who retweets a twat like J.K. Rowling saying they've got a point hates every trans person. Okay, I'll say that again. Not everyone who retweets and supports a singular opinion of an awful person is the extreme of that thing, right? Not everyone who retweets Tommy Robinson and Nigel Farage hates all Muslims. But on the other side, everyone who hates all Muslims is retweeting and supporting Nigel Farage. So not everyone that retweets J.K. Rowling hates all trans people, but everyone who hates all trans people is retweeting J.K. Rowling. Do you see what I'm saying? Sometimes you've got to look around at the company you're keeping. At the very least, you've got to be aware of it. And it's very easy for those of us who are on the other side to jump to conclusions and take it to the nth degree with that as well. I think there's a lot of people who have been misinformed and have found themselves on the wrong side of history through ignorance, not through hatred. But there is a reason. And although I don't put the blame solely at their feet, there's a lot of blame to go around. And I put a lot of it at these grifters. Because if they believed that their words were just to make them money off of idiots that want to hate women or hate gays or hate whatever, that builds over time, and we're seeing that now. These things have been being said for a long time. The migrants are coming, they're going to take your job while also taking all your benefits. The wording used in newspapers, invasion, flood. By the way, I hate the term illegal when referring to fucking people. People aren't illegal. It's even worse in America, and some people over here use it when they say illegal alien. How fucking dehumanizing can you possibly be? I'm so fortunate that I got to be born in the time I did, on the land that I did, around the people that I did, with the skin complexion I did. I didn't choose any of that. I didn't earn any of that. It happened. And the notion that because someone else rolled a different die, that fuck them. People turning up to say that they're protesting a horrific attack is fair enough. That would be fair enough. But it's not that. We all know it's not that. Anyone saying that these are just concerned citizens or patriots is a fucking liar. At the very best, they're hugely misinformed and naive. But that is a very small percentage of people. The vast majority of them are still trying to profit off of anger. They're still trying to profit off of hatred. And the time for plausible deniability of acting like they didn't know that it could lead to this, that's over. That's done. We've seen gangs of these fucking fascists not going on a protest march, but deliberately attacking places of worship, mosques, which again, the killer that they're supposedly protesting against was a Christian child. They were attacking hotels that were housing asylum seekers. People that have fled war zones, that have risked everything. Again, it's so, because we dehumanize them all the time in the media, because it's so alienating to us, it's so easy to forget to how to put yourself in that position of coming from a place where you're willing to risk everything. You're willing to cross the fucking sea in a shanty boat with your children because that risk is worth it, because where you are, there is no hope. Only to make it through that. And then these people come, they don't just stand outside the hotel shouting, doing death threats, saying awful things, not even just throwing stones at windows. They're setting fire to these hotels and then blocking the fire exits with flaming bins. That's not protest. That's attempted murder of innocent people, of people who did not do this, who have nothing to do with it. These are not people, these are not concerned citizens. These are people who have been radicalized. And again, it's not entirely their fault. They've been told for years that people are coming for their livelihood, that Sharia law is going to take over, that Islam's going to take over, that immigrants are going to take over. They've been told for years lies that they need to take back their country. What percentage of England is white? Like 80, 85%, something like that? I saw a heat map on Twitter the other day. There was like saying, it was showing like, you know, what percentage of white people it was in different parts of the UK. And it was like, and look at it now. And it was just a fake graphic. Just had loads of little white shiny points on it that said it's less than 25% white people with these spots. It's just not true. It's just, it's provably false. It's blatantly bullshit. But not everyone knows that. And if that's all you see, that's all you ever see in your Facebook groups, within your friends' WhatsApp chats, of course some of them believe it. Of course they do.
My friends need to be punished.
Thank you for the subscription follow. So I'm not shocked at the response from some people. I think the thing that upset me most was realizing that these grifters won't then stop. Because in my head, if you've got the gall to try and profit off of division and stuff, like I said, maybe you've got that plausible deniability. Like, look, like say, Andrew Tate said all this horrible sexist, misogynist stuff. And then when attacks on women suddenly are on the uprise, you know, it'd be like, whoa, I didn't tell anyone to do that. That's plausible deniability. When you look at the vast numbers of these white English guys that truly believe, now don't get me wrong, they don't believe they're protesting what they're claiming they're protesting. No one does. The grifters pushing it, the twatty politicians like Farage and stuff, but also the people on these marches. None of them believe they're there to honor the lives of the 3 little girls whose names they've never fucking mentioned. That's why they're hitting mosques and not churches, right? This has got nothing to do with that, and they know that. But they believe they're in the right anyway. They believe that this was the spark to lead to change that they think is necessary, that they've been convinced is necessary. They believe that these horrible events that happen only happen because of immigrants. They believe that. It's insane and laughably, provably false. But they believe it. Was it just the end of last year? A young kid got killed by a grown man with a sword. But no one remembers because the grown man was white and the kid was black. There was no protests in the streets. There was no uproar. Certainly not by this crowd. It's not about protecting the children. The only thing they think they're protecting children from is multiculturalism. It's a horrendous grift that we are now seeing the real consequences of. It's no longer hypothetical. And the fact that we have seen these horrible scenes play out and people will still try and profit off of it. That's when you remove the plausible deniability and you're just a fucking monster. You're a disgusting, abhorrent person. If you can even remotely entertain the idea of trying to clickbait and rile people up. So I wanted to come on and talk about that a little bit. That was my intro to the stream. Hello everyone that's jumped in, and thank you very much. Do feel free to add in or ask questions or argue with me if you want to. I don't mind. It's yeah, it's just wild. I wasn't prepared for how bad it would get. It's also, it's not happening in Scotland, thankfully. They say the UK riots, but it's not happening in Scotland. It's not happening in Wales, from what I can gather. I've got a few friends in Northern Ireland. I know it's happening in Belfast. There were some pretty horrible scenes right next to where I was just a couple of weeks ago. They must have got my post-it notes I was leaving behind and my cans of gasoline. Yeah, I think it's pretty apparent what can happen. And again, it fills me full of fear because this is the same thing I've been saying about the anti-trans stuff and things for a long time. These people that get lied to and told that drag queens are coming for their kids. And they all believed it. They bought it. And now no one talks about it anymore because there was never any truth behind it. It was never a real fucking issue. Nothing changed. They just stopped talking about it because they moved on to the other thing, which is DEI for this election, by the way, in case you wanted to know what the current right-wing grift trend buzzword is. But there's real lasting consequences to that grift. There's real people that get hurt when you say that a cisgender woman has too much testosterone and therefore isn't allowed to box other women. Even though she's been beaten in boxing before, and even though every single one of her opponents except one has said, no, absolutely, fair play to her. Like, what are you talking about? This is horrendous. It's people that don't know about gender and also don't know anything about fucking sports. But a lot of them who retweet and share and tell their friends, they believe it because they think they're doing the right thing. But the original posts, the people who spread this shit, the things that go viral, these big bot accounts on Twitter and stuff like that, they're doing it purely for engagement and money. And so neither the people that originally do it or the people that reshare are doing it directly to hurt someone. They're not. I don't believe they are. Like, say, few exceptions of the most extreme people, but the people who retweet anti-Islam, anti-trans, this stuff, they believe that their position is right because they've been lied to over and over again by these people in positions of power, these grifters that are only doing it for money. Neither of them are coming at it from a position of hatred, and yet there's real lasting results. Because attached onto that becomes, well, you know, no trans people should be allowed in sport. Maybe trans people shouldn't be allowed to use the bathroom they want. Maybe trans people shouldn't be allowed to work in schools and stuff. We start getting these same arguments that we got about homosexuality in the 90s, which again, a lot of you will be too young to know about, but it's the same hymn book they're singing from. You can't have a gay man working in a school. That was a real opinion held by a lot of people. It would be in the news. And again, it would be the same thing if there ever was a scandal with a gay teacher. That would be everywhere. Was it even close to the majority of scandals? No, of course not. But it's what sold papers back in the day. Hey, you gotta sell these papers, Carly. It's the same bullshit. It's an economy based around attention. And moralistic integrity has always been a crucial part of journalism. There's always been people that have manipulated it. There's always been people that have gone too far. Always. But because of the internet, because of the anonymity, because of the huge sweeping scale of it, because of how quickly a lie can go around the world, it's gotten so much worse. And I feel like all of these seeds that they've planted, not realizing the huge stinking trees they'd grow into, they're now starting to bloom. And it's scary. So I'm here to answer any fucking misinformation. And like I said, they've no plans to come to Scotland, and they fucking better not. I think there is a pro-UK rally in Glasgow planned on the 7th of September. And there's a lot of people in Glasgow who are pro-unionist and just like wearing the Union Jack flag. So I'm sure people will turn up for that. I very much doubt it will be anything like what we've seen in England. And I'm very, very confident there will be a huge counter-protest from nay-Nazis and, you know, anti-fascists in Scotland. Good fucking luck trying in Edinburgh. The last time that happened, some EDL and SDL, Scottish Defence League, twats came about, 7-8 years ago? And tried to go to the English mosque, couple of hundred of them, and about 10,000 local people turned up to surround the mosque and be like, what the fuck you doing? Not local Muslims, local white, non-Muslim Scottish people. The last time Farage came up to Scotland, he got chased off of his microphone and into a pub. We ain't playing that here. And if I'm wrong and I get proven wrong, I'm gone. I'm leaving. I can't accept it. I can't accept that we can't change it. And I damn sure won't go out without a fight. The craziest thing I've heard in the media, because I stay away from it, is people being outraged that a woman was doing well in women's boxing because of a genetic advantage. Yeah, it's like I say, this has been... the thing is, most people who know or care about trans rights, a lot of y'all ain't sporties, you know? And on the other side, most people that care about sports aren't really all that up on trans issues. And this happened years ago with Fallon Fox, who was a trans female MMA fighter. And clips started going round after it came out that she was trans. Clips started surfacing of her like knocking girls out. And people were like, this is completely unacceptable. Until they asked the highest level MMA female fighters, and they were all like, yeah, fuck it, I'll fight her. And then some of them did. And guess what? They kicked her ass. Because skill still matters. The argument that you could take the Usain Bolt or LeBron James or like these, the peak male athletes we've ever had, and they could put on a wig and pretend to be trans, and they can go and dominate the female sports. That's true. And if that started happening, then that would be an issue. That wouldn't be fair. It will never happen. It will never happen. Because the only people that would disingenuously transition to get an edge in a sport or a contest are not made of the same fucking competitive stuff that you need to get to that level. They're just not. They're not that good. And again, if that changes, then we should have that discussion. We should look into it. But it's not a thing. It's just not a thing. And yeah, this the woman that was getting all these attacks is a cis woman. And yeah, the genetic advantage. Absolutely stupid. All right, okay, John Jones has got longer arms than anyone else. Should he have his own class based on having long limbs? White people are too good at powerlifting. That's not fair. That's a genetic advantage. Other races shouldn't be forced to powerlift against. It's not fair for Northeastern Africans to do the long distance running. It's not fair. They've got advantages. No one makes those arguments, or no one should make those arguments. It's stupid. The problem you have, though, is that even if they aren't doing it to hurt people, the consequence of what they're saying end up causing more harm than good. A lot more harm than good. That balance isn't even close. You're absolutely right. Morning, Alex. It's crazy how people also only look at the successful trans people. They don't look at the hundreds of people who don't make it. Of course, because that doesn't sell papers. League of Lanky Men, yeah. Boxing ladies assist women from a country that doesn't have LGBT rights. Correct. It's disingenuous. And like I say, the people who are doing it, who are spreading this bullshit, are spreading it for clicks, for outrage and for attention and for fucking money. That's disgusting enough as it is, but they're not doing it through hatred, they're doing it through money. And the people that are sharing it are doing it because they've been lied to and they believe that they're on the right side of things. And it doesn't matter. This is why people go, oh, it's all about the intention. No, it's not. No, it's not. If I call you a cunt bucket and you say that offends me, the fact that I said it in jest doesn't fucking matter. My intentions are relevant. I still upset you. Now, what am I going to do about it? First thing is, what are you going to do about it? Oh, it turns out you told me. You told me that I upset you. So now what am I going to do about it? Am I going to just turn around and say, you're wrong, fuck you? I'm allowed to. Makes me a bit of a shitty person, in my opinion. It's horrendous that we've gotten to this point, but it's not a mystery. This is the first time in my entire life that I've noticed social norms becoming more right-wing and less progressive. My entire life, we've gotten less sexist, less homophobic, less racist, less hateful towards the poor, more compassionate. My entire life. Now, are we where we need to be with these things? Hell no. But I've seen it get better consistently, year after year, my whole life. Until with the Andrew Tate stuff, I started seeing young boys being more sexist. Hadn't seen that before, kind of scared me. Talked about it on stream. And now we're seeing more blatant, open, disgusting racism. And it needs to be fought. I don't mean go and take a brick and get yourself in trouble. I mean, we need to talk about it. We need to call it out if we see it, if we hear it. We need to make sure people are informed, because every single one of us is going to have friends or family that quietly are believing these things. right? It doesn't mean they're going out and trying to cause trouble. It doesn't mean they're taking a flaming torch to minorities, but they're sitting there. They've heard these things and thought, oh, that makes sense. Not the most extreme stuff, just a little thing. And then they build up. And these lies build up to the point where they believe, oh, but you know what? Migrants are coming in and they're getting to stay in 5-star hotels and they're getting free cars and free houses. And if you believe every single one of them, and in the end they go, well, maybe that's not okay. Are they foolish for not looking into it more? Yeah, absolutely. But not everyone has that around them. A lot of people live in a fucking bubble. So it's important that we talk openly about how ludicrous this stuff is, because they're already getting stuff in their ear from the other side. Just a lot of people are too afraid to talk about it. That's why Brexit happens. That's why Trump happens. There's a lot of times where we've believed that the right wing was smaller than it was. It's because they're afraid to talk out. A lot of the time, it's smarter people that know they don't have all the answers, so they don't want to say anything. But if it's never challenged, it's just going to keep festering. See, I need money, but I also have morals. I think that's what annoys me the most, is I'd be a real good grifter. I'd be really good at it. I know how to win arguments. I'm good with my words. I'd like to think I'm fairly charismatic. And that's why I can spot the disingenuous nature of a lot of them as well. But I wouldn't. I'm not saying I've got all the morals, you know. But it disgusts me. It's kind of, like I say, this point that we've reached where there's no plausible deniability is kind of like my opinion on psychics. I think that there's some people out there who genuinely believe they can converse with the dead. And I have a lot more tolerance for those people than I do for the ones who are deliberately lying and ripping people off. Right? Because at that point, you are choosing money over morality, over humanity, over compassion. I'm very forgiving of ignorance. I'm very forgiving of ignorance. We're all ignorant about a lot of stuff. All of us are. You can't know everything. That's why it's important to meet people of different backgrounds, which these fucking morons want to end. But it gives you an insight into things that you otherwise wouldn't know. It's so important to become less ignorant every opportunity you get. But we're all ignorant about something, so I'm forgiving of it. I'm patient with it. I'm not impatient. I'm not tolerant at all with completely deliberate, immoral, awful actions. If you swing your arm because you're excited and you punch me in the face, I'll forgive you for that. But if you deliberately run across the room just to smack me, I'm going to be less tolerant of that, you know? It was wild as well seeing goalposts be moved to gender is complicated. The boxer thing, this isn't what this stream's about, so I won't dwell on that too much, although do ask if you've got any questions, because gee whiz. The funniest thing about the boxer thing is seeing all these people who have argued for the last few years that there's only two genders and there's no exceptions, basically completely denying the existence of intersex people, even though there's more intersex people than there are ginger people in the world. They're like, but no, that's such a tiny population, they don't even really exist. And now there's we should, like, what do you mean they're cis? Oh, they're cis. Well, but they're not cis enough. And again, the same woman, if she turned around and said, well, guess what, I'm a trans man, those same people would be like, no, you're not. They don't know what they believe. Again, they're so determined to be on the right side, but they don't know what it is because they don't have the information. It's not their fault, they're ignorant, but the results and the consequences of that is real harm to vulnerable fucking people. And they don't see that. They don't think about that. You know, it even makes me want to stay indoors more than heading outside because of the transit. Of course it does. Of course it does. That's not a remotely surprising. That's an awful thing. I mean, I'm heartbroken that you feel that way. I have brown friends in England, and I am terrified for them right now. Terrified. That should never be the case. Migrants aren't even taking our jobs; they're taking the jobs we don't want to do. Yeah, this is. I grew up in a factory town when Polish people were first starting to come over in large numbers, and I remember people being like, "Oh, the Polish are coming; they're taking all the jobs." I'm like, mate, they're working in the sausage factory for minimum wage. Do you want to do that? Because that job's been advertised for 2 years. And clearly you don't need a lot of qualifications because you're saying they're coming here with none and no understanding of the language. That job was there if you wanted it. Humans are the reason for all suffering, anger, and trouble in the world. That's why I'm so cut off from people these days, because I can't handle it anymore. I do not care anymore. It doesn't matter. I've had it with the drama and the fighting, the rights and the stupidity of the humans. I make my art. I listen to music. I spend time with my pack and no one else, because everyone else wants to do drama llama stuff and I don't see the point. Gender and sex are two different things. Biology is what it is. The label is your sex. How society sees you and portrays you. And society is gender. That's why gender is complicated. Correct. Gender and sex being two different things is not a controversial statement at all, unless you don't know what you're talking about. And yeah, Alex, I understand all that. I understand that frustration. That's why I'm doing this video. But also the things that you like, the art, the music, the friendships, the love. There's a lot of good things that humans do as well. And I refuse to become jaded because of these people. I refuse to simply say they're morons or they're evil, because it's too simple. And it also completely sucks the oxygen out of any hope for change. If we just say it is what it is, then it is what it will always be. I don't like that. I don't think that's a good, because they're not going to stop. These right-wing grifters are not going to stop. That's been made clear. So this is only going to get worse unless it's countered. All right. Let's watch a couple of things and then I'm going to go and try and have some fun. So I told my partner I was going to do this and she's like, okay, well, we're going to have a barbecue and wine and maybe you could join afterwards so that you can sleep tonight. And I was like, maybe. I didn't sleep last night. I spent too long doom scrolling on X. How mental has X gotten, by the way? That For You page is just, it's not just some right-wing people, it's loons. It's the most extreme stuff. It's wild. Wild.
First message of the day says, bring back Suella Braverman. I hope you've missed me as much as I've missed you, and I derive no pleasure whatsoever from Surprised to See has been somewhat overlooked in an awful lot of the coverage you have.
I wanted to see this because this is some of the lies from the far right, apparently. And yeah, I don't know everything about this, so I kind of want to educate myself. So I've got a few videos lined up that I wanted to watch and see if you guys do as well. It's very quiet. Sorry, I apologize. I can turn that up. Oh, that's right. I turned it off for me and not you guys. My bad. I can spell. I don't use X anymore unless I want to see opinions in WWE segments, not gonna lie. Yeah, I go on once every few days and make angry rants about transphobia and racism. Because that's mostly what I'm seeing, because it's what engages me, and that's, again, it's money. Most politics words on X being blacklisted, so all I get is memes. Fair enough. Yeah, it shocked me. I've said, like, just scrolling through the amount of, like, yeah, just horrific stuff that you see. Is I genuinely didn't think, I knew Musk would ruin the business because that's like his thing that he does. But I genuinely didn't see it getting dystopian right-wing propaganda. I didn't call me naive. I didn't think that would happen. I don't know why.
Murders of three little girls, one of whom, of course, was the daughter of immigrants. That's something I'm surprised to see has been somewhat overlooked in an awful lot of the coverage. You have the son of people born elsewhere, embarking upon a murderous frenzy, and one of his victims is the daughter of people born elsewhere. But the problem, apparently, is people born elsewhere. Perhaps we can riddle that one a little bit.
Doesn't make any
later.
sense, does it?
I'm going to talk to you, I think, first about a few of the phone calls we've taken over the years, because I've been on a journey. Dreadful word, that. When I started in this job about 20 years ago, I wasn't particularly engaged in these matters. I was familiar with sort of the National Front. My dad had covered it for the Daily Telegraph in the 1970s and the 1980s. Nick Griffin was bubbling around. I think Farage was still a bit of a fringe figure. And I never really knew that this kind of thing was bubbling under the surface of our society all the time. I knew about the Notting Hill race riots, particularly after I moved to West London and got involved in Carnival. And by got involved in Carnival, I mean got on one on an annual basis. I didn't have any particular role to play or any volunteer type status, but I found out more about it. I have a little bit of history. I know as a Catholic that the Gordon riots in, I think, the 18th century were dedicated to the belief that Catholics, their entire careers, of course, have been built upon inciting precisely the sort of violence that we saw this weekend.
Yes.
And it will be minutes, if they haven't done it already, before they start claiming that they warned against it. The people who said we need more robust responses. We need...
Do you see the other thing that I've seen a lot of people saying of basically calling for Keir Starmer's job? I don't know anything about that guy. I'm not like passionate about like liberal politics. I'm definitely not passionate about Labour. Keir Starmer to me kind of looks like a baked potato that you lost interest in and didn't finish. But the sentiment that this is happening because of Labour is wild. There's a lot of people being like, this wouldn't have happened if, what are they called, Reform, the Farage party, had got in. And you're like, what are you talking about? If they'd got in, all they would have done was empower more of these fascist gammons. This was such a bizarre fucking argument. Anyway.
Need to be tougher.
Looks like a politician, not a personality.
To get our country back. That's a particularly vicious phrase that I think we'll dig into a little bit later.
Get our country back.
They've incited these scenes.
They only just got in. How are they supposed to stop anything? Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, they seems to be taking it seriously. I like that he did the opposite of Trump and immediately came out and was like, I have no problem calling these people far-right fascists. So I was like, all right, cool. Again, I don't know much about him, but I like that he did that. And yeah, very, very strange. Like, as if someone else had got in, the murder wouldn't have happened? Or are they saying that the murder wouldn't have been responded to in the same way? How has any of that got anything to do with who's in power? Or are they blaming them on the fact that there's too many immigrants and refugees? Because, if I'm not mistaken, the Tories have been in power for the last fucking 700 years. Really, really strange, disingenuous argument again. But if you see these things and you look in the comments, it's just everyone going, that's absolutely right. Too true. Get them out of here. That is absolute bollocks. And also, by the way, seeing as I know I've got at least one English friend in the chat right now, I hope you're okay as well. I have so many friends across England, and we spoke lightheartedly, I think recently, about the football hooligans, the English football hooligans, and how I felt bad for my English mates who like football, who want to support England but feel bad for doing it because of the people that associates them with. And this is the same thing, but way, way worse. This is horrendous. I'm so upset, and it's not even come to Scotland. I don't think it will, certainly not in that way, but I can't imagine how much more outraged I'd be, how much more helpless I'd feel. It would have happened, and it would have happened quicker if they got in. I agree. they would have been supported by their own government. I agree. Politicians don't have personalities at all. Yeah, it's quite rare. It's now been a month. Boris Johnson did, and it was that he was an idiot. All right, personality. Don't try and understand gammon logic. There is none. I want to though. I want to, much like I want to understand incel logic. I want to understand race. I want to understand where people are coming from so that I can meet them somewhere and hopefully guide them to a more fucking informed place. His platform has been service over party, and he's kind of toed that rhetoric so far, but it's early days again, yeah. At least he was openly flaunting his idiocy so that people can see the world, yeah. Embarrassing me to be associated with the UK at this point. Yeah, it's... yeah, again, I've been talking about it for years, seeing the more and more of the influence of right-wing American social media infiltrating British society.
Make no mistake, calling people, human beings, seeking asylum, having fled war zones and tragedy, calling them illegals, the most dehumanizing of terms, having lecterns.
What'd I say?
Displaying the phrase, stop the boats. Public figures calling for people crossing the channel in flimsy dinghies to be sort of left to drown. People in Parliament now who have subscribed to some of the grimmest rhetoric I can ever remember hearing. We know, everybody knows it. I tell you what, something that possibly gets missed, they know. You can tell by the way they wriggle. I think Farage this morning is trying to blame it on the policing of Black Lives Matters protests, which of course happened during lockdown and did not contain anything like the attacks upon entirely innocent people that we've seen over the course of this weekend. They know.
Again, it's about education. It's about information. It's about the fact that people voted for Farage when one of his main policies was to get us out of the economic fund that we weren't in. So in order to remove Britain, he would have had to make us apply to join in the first place. Like this kind of stupid stuff that to anyone who is remotely paying attention will go, that's outrageous. Another one of his main policies was end wokeness. What does that mean? What does that mean? How do you implement that? It's nonsense. It's pantomime. But people were believing it. Why? Because why wouldn't they? They don't have access to the same people and opportunities and information. Or at least they don't know how to access it. The very fact that Farage, whatever you say his fucking name, and his party got any votes. The very fact that people support Tommy Robinson and the EDL is proof that there are a lot of mobilized people who really care about what they think is the right thing and are only getting spoken to from one side. This is what I've always said about the right-wing grifters and people getting upset about young men being radicalized by people like Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate. There's a reason it happens, and it's because no one else is speaking to them. The concern that there are so many, young boys, especially young white boys in Western countries, that turn that way is because they don't feel seen. There is a real problem that we are not taking care of a group that has not been marginalized but is starting to feel like they are. That doesn't mean that we don't also talk about women's rights and minorities and stuff like that, but to dismiss and ignore the fact that there's a lot of angry young white men, straight, cis, all of the tick boxes, to dismiss or deny the fact that these young men are feeling that way is foolish. That too has consequences. And if we don't want them to turn to people like Andrew Tate, then we need to give them somewhere else to fucking turn to. You can't blame them for checking out the only book in the library. So there's a real problem with people that don't have political literacy finding their way into these far right, bigoted, indefensible, stupid positions. And if we want to change it, that's how I think we do it.
No, and they can't. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? People who've been feeding bile into the public bloodstream for decades about people born in other countries. It doesn't matter that they marry them, have children with them.
Oh yeah, Nigel Farage is
Speak
married to an
foreign
immigrant.
It doesn't matter. It
No, no.
works. It's a business model. It's a career plan.
Almost like he's a hypocrite.
It's a path to profit, and this is what
Preach.
happens. This is what happens. This is terrorism. These are
Yeah.
pogroms. These are attacks upon wholly innocent
Nigel
people for the crime
Farage's
of having been born
wife
somewhere
is
else,
not British.
or having different coloured skin from you, or having different coloured skin from the people who
Crazy,
are
huh?
attacking them. So I'm going to run through a few things that happened to me over the years. There's a moment many years ago. I don't know whether you remember it. I think it was before we started clipping things. John in Hounslow. And I've been looking at Hounslow today, bizarrely, because it's my home borough where plenty of asylum seekers are housed, including in leafy Chiswick, where I used to live. But Hounslow published a report at the end of last year describing the unacceptable conditions that asylum seekers face when they are put up in hotels. We may have a little look at that later. But I always remember John in Hounslow because it was the conversation that they always tell you that they're not allowed to have. He literally said to me on the programme, we're going back, 15 years maybe, I think? Was it in this building or the old building? I can't remember. He said, you can't say what you want in this country about immigration without being called a racist. I said, go on, mate, say it. I promise I won't call you a racist. And he said, OK, Hounslow's full of Pakistanis and they smell. Well, I think, actually, no, he said Hounslow's full of Pakistanis.
Have you ever had a conversation like this? I have.
And I thought,
I've had conversations like this. Hi, Tech, welcome in.
Before the programme was sort of sometimes making the news rather than simply reporting it. So
People go, you can't say what you want. I'm like, well, you have my permission. So like, oh, if you say anything, people say you're racist over anything. I'm like, well, what do you want to say that people are unfairly calling you racist for? And then they just say something racist. You're like, well, I can see where other people are maybe coming from. It's wild, isn't it?
Gary's a first-time caller in Harlow. Gary, you were involved.
This is the one I've
I'm
seen.
involved.
Talk to me about where and when and how.
This is what I was talking about earlier of it's hard to reach these people because they believe wholeheartedly complete nonsense that is being force-fed to them. And we can blame these individuals for their actions, and we should. But it won't stop it. If we want change, we need to cut it off at the source. Why did they get radicalized?
Middlesbrough. I went up there. I travelled up there from Harlow in Essex, where I'm originally from. So I travelled up there to see, to actually demonstrate my problems of why all this is going on. That's the problem.
Right, you drove?
Yeah, I drove up there, yeah.
You drove from Harlow to Middlesbrough and back to take part in the protest?
Yes.
Right, and what is it that you wanted to protest against?
Basically all the boats coming in, all the immigrants coming in, causing problem, causing grief. That's what I'm protest about. That's what I'm fed up of, really.
Which people are you thinking of when you go on these protests?
Asians.
Asians?
Yeah.
Right, so all Asians are who you're thinking of when you think of the people causing all the problems, all the immigrants?
Asians and black people.
Right.
Asians
so you
and black
drove from
people.
Harlow in Essex to Middlesbrough to protest against black people and Asian people. Basically all non-white people is what you're saying.
Yeah, because they're the main issue.
They're the main
all
issue.
non-white people are the main issue.
Well, from what I'm seeing.
What are you seeing? Because from where 99.9% of the rest of the country is seeing, all black people and all Asian people are not the issue, Gary.
Well, from what I'm seeing, from the problems that's going on from South, look at Southport, look at the Manchester airport incident. You know, who's starting all the grief?
And the colour of their skin is what you think is the main driver of that?
Well, they don't know any order. They don't have any order.
And who's they? Sorry, the they is, again, all black people and all Asian people. And the black people and the Asian people who you come into contact with in Harlow, do you accuse them of being as apparently violent as the people that you've seen being violent who also have that skin colour?
No.
So it's not all black and Asian people then, is it?
No.
Right. So when you went up to from Harlow to Middlesbrough to protest all black and all Asian people,
This is what, like, it's so draining, but this is what needs to happen. These people are getting angrier and angrier because they're getting called racists and fascists, and they are racists and fascists, but they don't see themselves that way. And so all it does is shut down conversation. So instead it needs to be baby steps, holding their hand in baby steps. There's no way to not be a patronizing cunt about it. But they need to be open to it and ready. The guy interviewing, what's his name? Tom Swarbrick. Tom Swarbrick. He's on LBC. I don't know. I don't watch a lot of LBC or whatever, but I've seen some James O'Brien stuff, that guy, before. And seems like he has the patience of a saint. Yeah, I'm not going to make you watch all of this, but this is because I did. And this is 10 minutes, and it's... Yeah, because the guy doesn't go anywhere. He keeps on saying... that's what the problem is. And he's like, why do you think that? He's like, oh, it's just because of what I've heard. At some point, he claims that he gets them down. And he's like, right, so it's not all black and Asian people. And he says, no. And he's like, and you agree that some white people sometimes cause bother? And he's like, yes. He's like, great. So it doesn't really matter the color of your skin. And then Gary comes up with an amazing stat, which is 95% of crime and problems comes from black and Asian people. Where did he get that stat? He read it on the internet. This is what we're fighting against. We get so caught up in the fact that some people vote conservative and are, you know, a little right wing. The real danger, or at least the most extreme and present danger, is how many working class people have struggled through their life because of classism, and have then been drip fed for years the lie that the reason their life isn't what they want it to be is because of people that are even more poor and unfortunate than they are. And it's diabolical. It's hard trying to get people to take a hard look at themselves and their actions. Of course, yeah. Absolutely. And again, before the internet, the UK did a great job of being a lot less partisan than America, because you guys have got Fox News versus MSNBC. You've got entire stations that are dedicated to giving you biased information, and everyone knows it, which is weird. Everyone knows that it's biased, but they like it because they have a team and you stick with your team. In the UK, everyone hates the BBC, which is arguably a good barometer of it trying to be in the center. I don't think it is, but I'm biased. I'm on the left. I think it's the right wing. But the point is that we didn't have the same bubbles of insanity that we've all witnessed in America over the last 20 years with the internet. We've seen that happen. But since that 20 years, these bubbles and this socially excluded rhetoric and fake facts and misinformation has been much more prominent in other countries because they don't need to get it from the TV anymore or the newspapers anymore. They get it from these WhatsApp groups, Discords, things like that. Factually not even accurate. The government puts out crime statistics publicly for people to see. Oh yeah, I know. Not even remotely true. But do you think Gary knows how to access the government's crime statistics? Do you think that if you showed him the government crime statistics that he would say, oh, you're right, my bad? Because I don't. Because part of them believing this is an identity, is a community. It's the same reason if you've ever spoken to someone that's really into the conspiracy theories. I've talked before about my dad went down the rabbit hole deep into conspiracy theory stuff, and there's nothing you can show him that will make him admit he was wrong. Believe me, I've shown him a lot of things to prove that he's wrong about a lot of things. It won't work. And it won't work because it's not just about the individual fact. It's like I've always said that if God came down tomorrow and presented himself and was like, hey guys, it's me. I'm God. I'm real. Here's my stats. Here's my test. And it was, if it was definitively proven that God was real tomorrow, there's a lot of people that would not convert. There's a lot of people that would stay with whatever religion they were already in, or atheism, and vice versa. If it was proven definitively that there was no God, would people stop being religious? No. Why? Because the truth isn't what matters. It becomes about identity and it becomes about community. And when you're someone like Gary, someone like these lads that are going on these protests, I'm not talking about the ones that are opportunistically just looking for violence. That's an entirely different issue. That's more, we're getting into toxic masculinity and stuff like that. And again, not looking out for the working classes and giving them opportunities, giving them access to things that could help. But for people like this that genuinely believe they're in the right, because they've read statistics like 95% of crime comes from Black and Asian people, it's really hard to get them to see that they're wrong, because it's not just about the fact, it's about the feeling of belonging. It's about the fact that they've been mocked and ridiculed and called names like racist that they don't identify with by the media, by me, by other people. And so it would be being on an island. It's terrifying. It's so much more than just the details of the facts. That's why when it came out that the person that started all this with some horrible murders, and it came out that they weren't Muslim, they were Christian, that's why no one stopped attacking mosques and started attacking churches. They didn't do that because that's not really what it was about. They don't care about what the truth is. Same with Trumpers in America. How many times has he been proven to be lying? And this, and they'll go like, well, it doesn't matter. They'll just move the goalposts because they don't care. They don't, and I don't say that flippantly. They don't care. Psychologically, that's not the most important thing. Sure, it would be great if everything they thought was accurate, but it's not. And to them, that's not the point. That's so irrelevant to them. That's you being pedantic. Oh, I said a thing that wasn't true. Shut up. You're missing the point. The point is that they've been lied to so much that they feel a community and a victimhood. They feel a kinship with other people that will stand by them. They feel abandoned, and they have been lied to and poisoned by these right-wing grifter cunts trying to get a few more clicks, trying to get a bit more money. Completely unforgivable. I want to know if Gary realized how broad a population Asian is. Yeah, an entire continent. The whole I read it on the internet excuse, it's the new if your friends jumped off a cliff, would you do it too? I mean, like I say, not everyone has the critical thinking to do that. Not everyone, we don't know that from birth. We're taught that. We learn critical thinking. The issue I'm having lately is that people I know read something wrong on the internet, and then a certain annoying orange also says what they read on the internet, making them go, see, he said it, it must be true. The argument, see, Trump said it, so it must be true, that's a bold position to take. There's no one even close to the amount of lies he's told. Because we've tracked this for like 20 years now? Whenever there's debates and stuff, they take note of everything that they say and they fact check it. It doesn't matter. Again, the public don't care, but they do. Those stats are there. You can look them up and see like how many lies they told in a certain amount of time. That last debate where Joe Biden looked like a fucking corpse, everyone focused on that, and rightly so, because that was embarrassing and awful and uncomfortable. But people just completely overlooked that Trump, whenever he was talking, was just spewing absolute shit constantly. That's such a wild stance to take. Like, wow, if Trump said it. He wouldn't just say things. You know, he wouldn't just make things up. Good sign of compromise is if no one's happy. I disagree. Good sign of compromise is everyone's happy. When the orange man agrees with you, that should be the biggest red flag about whatever you think. Yeah. Media literacy needs to be taught in schools. I agree. I don't know what to tell you, man. I work in really underprivileged schools and I've worked in private schools, and there's a difference. There's a big difference in the access to things. One of the biggest things that people who are privately educated overlook, when I've had these discussions with friends who, you know, want to argue and be like, wow, you know, I wasn't rich at my rich school though. I'm like, yeah. One of the biggest things they overlook is the fact of how much easier it is to get a job and stuff like that when you know the right people and things like that. When you have access to better equipment, better facilities, more opportunities, the poor and working class, and specifically the underclass, they've been left behind for decades. And this is one of the results of that. Awful stuffs.
You don't actually mean that, do you? You mean something else.
Well, that's what I mean. Those are the main culprits.
Of what?
That's what I mean.
The main culprits of what?
Causing a lot of grief.
And there are no white people who have caused a lot of grief. Like, for instance, the people going to protest in some parts of the country like Middlesbrough, or all Asian people, and indeed some white people cause problems too. Why do you need to make it about skin colour?
I'm not making it about skin colour,
Well,
but they're projecting the wrong image.
Come on, man.
You rang up and said the reason you went on this protest is to protest against black people and Asians. All blacks and all Asians is what you said.
Well, 95% of them are problematic people.
How did you get to 95%, sir?
It's been proven statistics.
It's been proven
where?
statistics. Guys, it's been 95% of black and Asian people are problematic. It's been proven statistics, guys. It's been proven statistics. So if you're not out rioting, then what are you? Don't blame me if you can't read proven statistics. And again, a lot of their concerns are based on real things, such as what you just said there, Joko. That is the kind of argument that these same people will make to then go and attack people that look different from them, right? I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but you see my point. Is people are latching on to real, genuine problems, such as the fact that people who are living around or even under the breadline are struggling to fucking survive. The fact that there's more food banks than ever before. The fact that people can't get... I couldn't get fucking disability when I was forced not to work. When I was in trauma recovery. And I was suicidal. And I got signed up for disability without me knowing. My therapist or my doctor, I can't remember, Someone just told me to go to this thing, and I did, and it was the most horrendous. I'll go back here a second. If anyone watching this, or anyone in your family or anything, has ever felt or suggested that people who get like disability benefits imply that it's like an easy way to live, I have never felt more dehumanized and uncomfortable than when I went for that. Because the woman that was asking me, she was basically trying to find out if I was suicidal enough and if I was traumatized enough to get money. And long story short, they decided no. She wasn't a doctor. She certainly wasn't a therapist. She was a council worker who sat across from me on a table, coldly asking really blunt questions. Okay, really. Ones that I won't repeat right now in case I upset anyone. Because I was upset. I was there crying, trying my best not to. Trying my best to hold it in as these horrific things that I wasn't ready to hear out loud, and I certainly wasn't ready to confront and answer, were just thrown at me. And I went through all of that to be told I wasn't in need of help enough. Horrendous. There was two people in the same waiting room, one in wheelchairs and one in crutches. I assume they went in and had their legs kicked just to test. These are real problems. And the problem is how at least stuff like this is, instead of blaming the government, a lot of these people are told, without media literacy, without political literacy, they're told instead to blame migrants. We're told instead that the reason you can't have your crumb of benefits is because someone came in from Algeria, someone came in from Poland and they took it. Sorry, there's no crumbs left because they took it. And instead of getting angry at the big fat baker that's just crumbling it onto the table, we get angry at the person that we're told took our crumb. Well, if it's been proven statistics, who am I to argue? Yeah. Someone give Gary a motor, his arms must be tired of all this backpedaling. My worry is, I mean, again, and to try and stick up for Gary, which is weird, but like, he's trying, he's like, it must have been hard when he was like, he put him in the corner, he was like, right, so it's not all black people. And there's a big pause and he goes, no. Like, good, excellent. That takes strength. That's hard. It would have been much easier to hang up the phone and call him a, cuck snowflake and blame him and never engage again. My worry is when they're going to move from racism to ableism. That's already happening and it will continue. Like, that's the problem. That's why it needs to get nipped in the bud now. The only reason this is happening to Muslim communities and being broadly expanded to anyone that's not white is because there's enough of them, enough non-white people that can be a thing. As soon as people are, because obviously you get these arguments, oh, there's more trans people than ever. And like, yeah, well, because, you're less likely to get attacked and assaulted in the street now. Not unlikely, but less likely. It's like one of these idiots as well. I saw someone might have seen me quote tweeting some idiot that was like, well, in the last 20 years, we've had loads more immigrants and we've had loads more rape cases. And I was like, no, there's not been more occurrences of this. I was like, no, there's not been more occurrences of awful assault and abuse and things like that. There's just more people reporting it now and more people are being convicted now because of progression, because of leftist ideologies. It's horrendous to associate things like that. I'm on disability. I have been since I was 25. I'm most likely being up for the rest of my life. It was hard work to get it, hard work to live on it. Yeah, I'll bet. People are bananas. I hear people say that all the time on TV and I'm just sat there like, it's a bunch of work and so many hoops to get disability, let alone getting unemployment or welfare. It's not like some government person shows up with a check and says, here you go. Also, it's been proven wrong to say that, like, to imply that, oh, people on benefits don't want to work. Of course there will be some. Of course there will be. But there's been countries and areas where they've given a universal basic income, where they've given everyone enough money to live for free. For free, you don't have to work. The government will pay you every year enough to live. And they had like, I think they had like pretty much the same, we can look this up. I think they had like the same amount of people working. Like it didn't change. Because people want to work because it gives you value. Also, you can get more money that way and stuff as well. It's a ridiculous notion perpetrated by people who have never been in a position where they needed benefits. And they don't know how humiliating it can feel just to go to the job center. Talk to someone who's never been on the breadline but has lost a job and had to go to the job center. Had to sign up for universal credit, job seekers, whatever. Ask them about how they felt. I guarantee you they'll tell you they were embarrassed. Why? Because there's judgment on people like that because of these lies. It's crazy. I've been using broken over to get accounts. Yeah, because you've got no spare money because you get given just enough to live on. One real quick Google search in 2022-23, white individuals accounted for 78% of arrests, 8% were black individuals, 8% were Asian, 4% were mixed, and 2% were of other ethnicity individuals. I wonder where Gary gets his stats. Well, not from reliable sources, obviously. But again, it's too simple to just say Gary's a moron. Because it dismisses the point. It ends it. It doesn't fix anything. It makes us feel better in the brief point and go like, he's an idiot. It's reassuring that you're on the right side when you hear people on the other side talk and they say things like 95% of non-white people are problematic. It certainly reinforces the idea that, okay, we're on the right team here. But it damn sure doesn't fix the issue.
Who? Show me. Tell me. You got in the car and you drove all those hours up to Middlesbrough to go and protest something that you can't evidence, for which there is no evidence to say they're 95% of the problem.
You're right, Tag.
Well, this is what I've read.
Where?
On the internet, I've read it. On the internet, I've read it.
And do
problem
you take
after problem?
Do you take what you've read on the internet that 95% of black and Asian people are the problem? You take that as a fact?
Well, that's what I think. Yeah.
And why do you think that? Because you believe it.
Because look at Southport. Look who was the culprit in Southport? Who was the culprit in the Manchester?
Well, actually, arguably, a culprit in Manchester was a white police officer.
No, but who started it? That's the problem.
And you know who started it?
Yeah, I saw the video.
Right, but that's also not proof, is it? Because there might have been a video before the video that you've seen, the conversation of which we're not party to because we weren't there.
It's hard, man. It's hard. Right, this is from today's show, apparently.
Start with Aaron, who's in Medway. Aaron, what would you like to say?
Oh, sorry.
Hello there. First time calling, so I'm a little bit nervous.
Just
wish to get my opinion across. Really,
Excellent.
It's just the way you're coming across. Really, to be fair.
Okay.
Like you keep.
To be fair, and I've, like I say, I don't like watch this show regularly or anything like that. I've just seen a few clips in the past, and James O'Brien, this gentleman here, is smug as fuck. Like, he's right and he's articulate and he's very smug about it. Yeah, I can completely see why. What we were talking about earlier about when people were good at arguing. I can completely see why. If you were someone like, no, but he's no, listen, you would get annoyed. You'd be like, you smug prick, pointing out everything I say that's wrong. How dare you?
saying Tommy Robinson is inciting the violence and everything as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
But if you actually read through all his tweets and everything, he's constantly advocated for no violence because that undermines everything. He's constantly been saying, everyone stop the violence.
For anyone who doesn't know who Tommy Robinson is, by the way, love that picture. I just wanted to see that earlier. Tommy Robinson was the founder, I believe, but also the leader of the EDL, the English Defence League, which was basically these people that are doing it. White skinheads, anti-Muslim thugs, right? And he is one of these grifters that I was talking about. Most of the most famous ones are American. But we've had a few over here, and Tommy Robinson's among the worst. He actually ended up going to jail. Only recently came out. Also, yeah, his real name is Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon, which didn't come out until much later because obviously he changed it to a much more British Tommy Robinson. In it, vile piece of crap. Yeah, oh yeah, you should. You should dislike this man. He's awful. So anyway, he's I'm a bit wary of going on Twitter. Yep. Okay. This man who constantly says the EDL doesn't exist anymore, and that's the thing, but all he does and all he has been doing is posting about this, and specifically anytime there's videos of Muslims gathering to, you know, try and protect their communities or their mosques, just sharing that to try and, you know, rile people up and be like, look, there's Muslims around, so actually they're the ones that are getting ready for violence. Anyway, yeah, enough of that. I don't want to be looking at Twitter and on stream. That's just asking to get banned in it. Someone I worked with thought he started a Free Palestine rally, and I was so confused by how they believed that. And the answer, of course, was TikTok. Yeah, no, he's very anti-Muslim. He has been anti-Semitic in the past as well, but he's, of course, a lot of this is now riled into the Israel-Palestine thing as well. And again, it's, it's people muddying the waters and, you know, for their own reasons. Yeah, we'll see. Whenever people tell me they learn something on TikTok, I usually just block them. I have no patience for people.
It gives everyone a reason to go against it, kind of thing.
Why did he spread the lies about the Southport killer, do you think?
Well, at the time, no one knew whether it was lies or it was truth.
Yes, they
at the
did.
Time,
He'd already been arrested.
Well, it was no one.
So the
knew his
authorities knew. So why would he spread those lies?
No one had named him at that time, had they?
So why would he spread his name?
Because at the time it was unknown.
But you just said he hadn't been named.
Well, he hadn't been named at the time.
So he spread a made-up name.
Yeah, because it was unknown from everyone.
But why did he
was
do
right
that?
Or who was wrong?
Why did he do that?
Because it was speculation.
But why did he choose a Muslim name to spread?
It could have been any name, you know.
But why wasn't it a Muslim name?
It could have been any name. He could have said anything. He could have said any name. Complete coincidence that he said a Muslim name. It's crazy.
Why wasn't it your name? Why didn't he say it's someone called Aaron from Medway? Why did he say it's someone with an Islamic name from who's seeking asylum? Why would he do that?
You're missing the point here.
I'm asking the questions. Why did he do that?
Well, I don't know. Like, everyone was out speculating everything.
I wasn't.
Far right or
I wasn't.
Left. You know, some people were out speculating different names and.
How's it going, Creamy? Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, for anyone, by the way, that's joined later, we're just gonna watch a little bit more, and then it's almost 8 o'clock, so I'm gonna go and have some fun because I didn't sleep last night, getting riled up about this stuff. But I've got a cracking 25-minute monologue for you at the start of the stream, so if you're interested in my full rant, seeing me untethered at my most controlled, then go watch the VOD for that. I'll probably try and make a little video of this as well. But if you take nothing else away from it, call out this bullshit. And to any of you that are regulars in here or in the Discord, if you ever hear any of this misinformation, if you see Elon Musk's Twitter feed, God forbid, and you're curious, if you see something you're like, that actually makes a lot of sense, and I feel like that right-wing grifter's making a point, that's not your fault. That's the strategy. That's the game plan. Please feel free to talk to me. I will not call you a racist or a sexist or a transphobe if you are just trying to fucking figure out what's going on. Please. I truly believe the only way we can stop this fucking horror is by communicating and talking to people and cutting it off at the source. And I believe a lot of the source is people being drip-fed misinformation and slowly becoming radicalized from it. It always starts with something that makes sense. With the BLM marches, when they're like, well, they shouldn't be destroying local businesses. And you hear that and you go, that's a good point. That's how it starts. It starts with someone making a disingenuous point that sounds like something that you should believe in. But like I said before, attached to the butt of that is several more carriages that leads to hatred, division, and completely misinformed, ignorant viewpoints that cause real devastating harm.
Reasons.
I wasn't, but we're talking about him. Why did he do that? Why did he choose a Muslim name and claim that he was an asylum seeker?
No, I'm saying you're
without
saying
any evidence at all.
On a sunbed.
Without any evidence. Let's not change the subject, Aaron. Let's begin with. You said you wanted to express your opinion. I want to pay you the respect of properly examining them. So he's not inciting anything. Why did he spread a made-up name, claiming it was a Muslim asylum seeker?
Well, lots of different people did.
Yeah, but we're talking about him. So
and
why
they were wrong as well.
Not trying to incite anything.
Well, everyone did. You know, everyone.
You can't keep saying these words that don't answer my question. If he's not trying to incite hatred of, let's say, Muslim asylum seekers, why did he claim that a Muslim asylum seeker had committed 3 murders that were...
Again, by the way, I disagree with him here. I don't think Tommy Robinson was trying to incite violence. I think he just didn't give a fuck that he did. I don't think he cared that it incited violence. What he was trying to incite was outrage clicks and money. GoFundMes to bring back the EDL. He was trying to incite profit. And he just didn't care. It's like when I say all the time when I go to schools, I got bullied a lot at school. A lot of people experience bullying. It's very, very rare that instead of a bully, you have some sort of arch nemesis. So when the cool kid pushes you down and everyone else laughs, the cool kid didn't do it because they wanted you to be upset. They did it to make themselves feel better. They did it so that everyone else could see them being cool. That doesn't make it okay. What they did is still completely wrong. And in most cases, they knew it would make you upset. They just didn't care. But that wasn't their motivation. I don't believe that these awful right-wing cunts, their motivation is violence and hatred. I believe their motivation is money and attention. But I think it's completely unforgivable to play that role, to read from that script when you know what the consequences will be. And like I say, like I was writing about earlier, plausible deniability is gone now. That used to be there. That used to be there. It's like when I can't remember who it was initially that said something about Leslie Jones, the black comedian from SNL, and then immediately she ended up having to leave Twitter because she got so many people sending her posts, calling her a monkey, all this stuff, like just horrendous, racist shit. Was it Milo Yiannopoulos? Whoever it was, they're probably unbanned from Twitter now anyway. But it was one of these right-wing reactionaries. And they were like, well, I didn't tell them to go and do that. Plausible deniability. They didn't tell them to go and do that. Did they know that that might be the result? Probably. But they have plausible deniability. But once it's happened, if you then do it again, which is what these grifters used to not do, right? They would do something horrendous like that. There would be lots of big attacks on it. And then they would go, I didn't know that that was going to happen. And they would denounce it. And they would come out and say, I don't think that should happen. You shouldn't do that. Please don't do that. Now, if you're cynical, you could say that, of course, they wanted that to happen. Of course, they wanted that attention. Of course, they wanted the headlines. But they have plausible deniability. If they then come out the next day and do the same thing, they don't have that anymore. And it becomes much harder to defend that individual. But now, the news cycle's so fast, misinformation is so incredibly numerous and thunderous that it's impossible to keep up. And that's when it becomes unforgivable. At its most honest and trusting, I'd like to believe that they weren't trying to incite violence. But when you've seen that your words cause violence, it's been proven that they do. And if that honestly wasn't your intention, you'd stop. You'd stop. If I tell you guys that I believe Will Wheaton kicks cats, have done for years, it'll be proven one day, and I'll be, vindicated. If I woke up tomorrow and realized that you'd all sent threatening messages to Will Wheaton, I would denounce it, and I would say, what are you doing? Don't do that. And do you know what I'd stop doing? I'd stop coming on here making jokes about Will Wheaton kicking cats. Because that's not the result I wanted. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not that complicated. So if you want me to genuinely believe that you weren't trying to incite violence, and I am willing to give you that benefit of that doubt. I'm skeptical, but I'm willing to entertain that as a possibility. But if it's then been proven, the effect that your words have, then that plausible deniability is gone. So what leg do you have to fucking stand on? Crazy.
Done by a British 17-year-old boy.
Okay, so say
A Christian British 17-year-old boy. Why would he choose to lie about a Muslim asylum seeker? You don't think this is an unfair question, do you?
No, I don't think you're
so answer it
coming out with
then.
an unfair question. Well, I think
Are your messages visible? Your messages are visible, Alex. People have been replying to you. If anyone's on, I think you're all on Twitch chat right now, but if anyone's messaging on YouTube, then it'll only be me that sees it, unless it's other people on YouTube, if you know what I mean. I see messages from Twitch and YouTube, but if you're watching on one platform, you won't see any comments from the other.
think that he would have come out if it was a Christian name.
Can you give me an
That
example
everyone
of
would have
that?
been sharing.
Can you give me an example of when he's condemned a Christian murderer?
Not off the top of my
Good
head.
question.
We can't. Well, then we'll have to scratch that from the record. Why did he choose to lie about a Muslim asylum seeker if he's not trying to incite hatred of Muslim asylum
Because
seekers?
that was the news at the time.
No, it wasn't.
It was. It was sort of all round everywhere on.
It was on racist
Nice.
social media accounts.
It
wasn't
was.
anywhere else. And I think Nigel Farage may have contributed.
Yeah, because Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson made up that it was a Muslim asylum seeker. They made it up out of nowhere. There was no evidence for it. But what it will do is rile up their fan base, leading to more support, attention, and money for them. And what are the consequences? Innocent asylum seekers being firebombed in hotels. The places they're seeking refuge being set on fire and the fire escapes blocked to try and murder countless innocent people that had fuck all to do with it. Not inciting violence, though. Not inciting violence.
Deliberately to the confusion, but you chose, did you, to believe it, despite there being no evidence? I didn't. Why would you do that?
At the time, yeah.
Why do you think you did that?
I don't know. You know, it's social media. I agree that there is a big problem with social media everywhere.
And where does Tommy Robinson do most of his work?
Speech.
Where does he do?
It's on X.
What?
It's on X, social media.
So that's where the big problem is.
Yeah, but what?
But you're here to tell me he's not part of it.
Well, he hasn't told everyone to go out and loot shops and riot.
No, but he's told people that 3 little girls were murdered by a Muslim asylum seeker, and lo and behold, people are looting shops and rioting and kicking in the doors of Muslims. You don't think there's any link at all there, Aaron?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't think he's right in that, along with a lot of other people that come out with this misinformation.
What do you think then?
What do I think about what exactly?
What do you think?
Sorry, just I don't want to speak out of turn or on anyone else. How's it going on? Good to see you. But since you're talking about it, Creamy, I just wanted to read what you said there. Ben Shapiro was what made me fall down the right-wing rabbit hole because he was the only big Jewish political talking head I knew. Yeah. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that they don't just come out and just say outlandish, horrible things all the time, especially people like Shapiro, who's really smart and articulate. I say really smart, he says a lot of really dumb things. But again, a lot of the dumb things he's saying, he's only saying because that's what's going to make him money. He's the epitome of a grifter. Doesn't stand for anything, doesn't believe in the vast majority of stuff that he says. But he will say something that makes sense, that connects to people, and then you're in. Once you've got the hook in, it's so easy to then believe the next thing. Because you trust that person, because they said something that made sense to you. And so you're willing to... You'll hear all the time, if you talk to people that... like I talked about Jordan Peterson earlier. He's a great example, because you'll meet a lot of guys that seem pretty reasonable. And they'll praise the likes of Jordan Peterson. And if you press them, what they'll do, same with a lot of young boys I talked to that were into Andrew Tate, is they're very unlikely to stand by everything they say. Very unlikely. What you'll normally find is what this guy's doing about Tommy Robinson. Is they'll say, well, I don't agree with everything, but they dismiss the stuff that they don't agree with. Because they said one thing that they liked, and then they go, okay, I like that, I agree with that, I trust this person. So the next thing they say, you're much more likely to believe it because you've already given them your trust. It's a classic con technique. It's not a new thing. But with the tribalism of the internet, it can get really out of hand really, really fast, which is what we're seeing. Who's Jordan Peterson? I'll try and speedrun this. I wrote about him earlier. He's a right-wing grifter, but he never used to be. He used to be a psychology teacher in Canada. When Canada introduced a new law, or were trying to introduce a law that would make it illegal to not respect people's pronouns. This is 6 years ago or something like that, maybe even longer. He made headlines because he fought against it. He said that shouldn't be the law. The government shouldn't police your speech. And you know, in theory, hypothetically, I kind of agree with him on that. And at that time, he had a lot of interviews where he said, if a trans person told me their pronouns, I would respect them and I would use them because that's common decency, but it shouldn't be the law. I think that's a fair point. You know, different people can argue and stuff, but I don't think that in itself is a horrendous point. But what happened is because all the people who were transphobic and hateful, he ended up going on Joe Rogan and stuff, and he was getting more and more opportunities to go on and speak about right-wing things as this controversial figure. He started making a lot of money being this controversial figure. And over time, he realized that his playing devil's advocate and arguing these things, his fan base wasn't just some extremists, it was all extremists. And again, you'll find stuff when he started getting famous of him talking about how he doesn't approve of, you know, incels or fascism or any of or transphobia. He was he really wanted to distance himself from that at first, but it was too late. And I felt bad for him for a while because I felt like he was forced into this corner, or he felt he was forced into this corner where the only way for him to be successful was to grift, was to sell to these people, was to say the things that they wanted him to say, because that's how you sell books. They want you to say the thing that they want. They want you to say trans people are a sin and stuff. And so over the last few years, he's just gotten more and more extreme about these things, and more apparent in his grifting, and the fact that, you know, everything he says is for attention and money. So he's a very easy and good example for that. But again, he used to talk a lot about men's mental health and young boys, young white straight boys specifically, often feeling like they're left out and cast aside. And he's correct. He's right that those people need a role model. They need someone to turn to, because we can't just turn around and get angry at them for following Andrew Tate. Where else are they meant to go? There's not a lot of people speaking directly to them that are good role models. And we, instead of trying to fix the problem, we complain about the effect. We complain about the fact that you've got a rash instead of figuring out what it is that you're allergic to. So we blame these young men, and we blame the Andrew Tates and the Jordan Petersons that are influencing them, but we're not providing any alternatives. So anyway, he used to do a lot of positive stuff like that. So you'll get a lot of people that will say, yeah, he made a good point about how to take accountability and how to find some self-worth as a young man. And he did. He said a lot of things that really, really resonated, and not in a toxic way, in some ways that I completely disagree with. I don't think his teachings were great, but I can see why they worked, and I think a lot of them didn't necessarily have negative effects. In fact, I think a lot of them had specifically positive effects. You could even, if you want to extrapolate it and get extreme with it, make the same argument about Andrew Tate. There's a lot of young men that felt empowered by Andrew Tate, not by his misogyny. They just let that go. And many of them got radicalized by it, and many of them managed to sort of skip that bit. But there are so many better ways to help young men feel seen, acknowledged, and inspired. But they're not being given those opportunities. So you get grifters. And it leads to radicalization. And whether those grifters are doing it specifically to cause dissent and division and hatred is up for debate. We don't know what's in their heads and what's in their hearts. But I don't think it is. I don't think that's their intention. I think their intention is attention and money, and that is why they do the things that they do. But there are real consequences, and that's the basic point of this stream. That's the main thing I want to get across. Is that my tolerance for that shit is gone, because we're now seeing it. It's no longer okay to play dumb, have plausible deniability, and say that, well, I said some good things. Ben Shapiro said things that I agree with. He has. He said a lot more that I disagree with, but he said, I understand. I have had a lot of friends that at some point or another have heard my friend Liam, who I love dearly, and I love him because he'll come to me. Because he'll hear some crazy, like, sexist or transphobic or racist thing, and it makes sense to him in that moment. But he is humble enough and good-hearted enough to realize that he's not well informed on these things, and he has enough respect for his friends like me and Minnie and his family and others around him that he knows he's not going to get cast aside, and he can openly come and say, here, what about this? This seems fucked up. And he respects my opinion enough that he'll listen to me. But if he didn't have that, if he didn't have that support network, if he didn't have those people that he felt he could talk to and ask questions to, then all he's going to do is hear that and say, that makes sense to me. And then it's unchallenged. We need to find a way to challenge this shit. He's still a practicing psychologist. I don't think he is. Or a private, but yeah, he's not a professor anymore. He talks all the time about being cancelled. That's the other. They love being cancelled. It's their favorite thing. Oh, he's talking about how cancelled they are in videos with 2 million views. One of my favorite types of videos to watch is AI voices of right-wingers saying the most insane shit, like promoting gambling or praising Skibidi Toilet. Oh yeah, like Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan are big targets for that stuff. Feel like I remember this guy from years ago. Yeah, he was also the lobster guy. Yeah. And he speaks like a Muppet. You know, it's very hard, you know, to be a man. And, well, you know, because of the feminized society, well, you know, you look where that gets you. And they don't want to work on the oil rig, so I ask you, is it fair?
Think about these riots.
I think the violence is completely wrong, you know. It undermines everything they're trying to achieve or the point they're trying to get
What's the
across.
point they're trying to get across?
Yeah, what are they trying to
The
achieve?
point we're trying to get, they're trying, we're all trying
You
to
said
get
we're
across,
then,
you know?
didn't you? Was that just a
Yeah,
slip
I
of the
did,
tongue?
Yeah, because
The cancelling thing's a fetish.
mainstream
Yeah.
media make people more right wing, even though it's central.
Right.
You know.
So what's the point? What's the point they're trying to get across?
Do you think it's right?
Yeah, Alex, as an autistic person growing up, as you are, and it can be very difficult to get out of black-white thinking, you know, and everyone should be encouraged to see the shades of grey and the nuance and the different perspectives. And you're absolutely right that, as I'm sure you've matured and gotten older and worked on it and gotten better at it, and it's something that's doesn't come natural to you, something that you have to work really hard at, and yet everything's just gotten so much more tribal, and it's devastating.
We're spending £6 million a day to house illegal immigrants in hotels, while our elderly are going to freeze this winter.
I think that it's.
I'm not going to keep pausing this because I'm going to go and have fun. But fucking this is where we go. This is important, right? We are giving money to asylum seekers when we should be giving it to the elderly. This is a great example of what I'm talking about, of these people. Some of them are just straight too far gone. But some of them have been told on this lie. That thing he's saying, that's not his unique idea, right? That's the thing that he's seen on Twitter and on Facebook. That's the thing you've probably all seen graphics for this kind of shit, right? It happens in America, it happens everywhere, right? Take care of us first, right? Why are we taking care of refugees when we've got homeless people on the streets, right? That's what they say. And if they are sincere about that, and I completely believe that some of them are, great. Those two things are not related. If your issue is that there are elderly people in the UK that can't afford to heat their homes, or eat, that will not survive the winter, I'm with you. That is absolutely unacceptable, and we should be protesting. But you're not protesting mosques, you're protesting the government. The problem isn't that is the only money that's there, and the government have chosen to give it to asylum seekers and not to the poor or the elderly or the disabled or the homeless. The problem is that they're lining their own pockets instead of helping those most in need. That's the problem. And we are all united in that. This doesn't need to be a divided attack on marginalized people. This needs to be a call for unity to make change to the things that you most want to see changed. To safer streets, to better education, to more parity and opportunity from people that come from underclass families. The vast majority of people in this country and around the world are fighting for basic living standards. Basic decency and comfort. That's all we're really looking for. An opportunity, a bit of equality. And yet we're taught to hate things like socialism. We're taught to hate this idea. We're taught that it's this dog-eat-dog world. Stop blaming someone that has a crumb because you think someone else should have that crumb. Blame the person that only allocated one crumb to the situation.
A direct consequence of the Conservative Party's decision to stop processing asylum applications, between 70 to 80% of which will be passed once those applications are processed. And if you go to the Home Office website, you can see how the annual cost has risen from millions to billions as a direct consequence of what they have done, because by creating this crisis, they can whip up the kind of hatreds and prejudices that they thought would help them electorally, but of course they miscalculated on what the Reform UK Limited Party would do. And when you say illegal immigrants, you are wrong, because they can't be here illegally until their application has been processed. And as I've just told you, 70 to 80%.
You haven't even got to look in the news.
70 to 80% of the applications prove to be successful. So tell me again what point you think the people throwing smashed up gravestones at British police officers are trying to make.
Well, they're trying to make the point that, enough is enough. Right?
Sorry, enough what?
Too many illegal immigrants, and we stress illegal.
Right. So why are they kicking in the doors of legal Muslims, people that were born here?
That's what I'm saying. That's completely wrong. Right. That is, you've got idiots in any group. Like last night in Birmingham, for example, where you've got Muslims out on the street. You will have wrong people in there that are threatening Sky News presenters. They didn't threaten.
Remember Charleston? Was it Charleston? Where is that American place where they had the proper Nazi anti-Semitic chants, and Trump was like, there was bad people on both sides? That's what they're trying to do with this. They picked up went into a Christian graveyard and dug up gravestones to throw at police because they're patriots, of course.
And Sky News presenters, they swore, and therefore I watched it as well. And I'm a professional broadcaster, and if you don't,
Charlottesville, Charleston's the dance.
A broadcast which contains swear words, then you'll get an Ofcom complaint upheld. But I talked at 10 o'clock. Yeah, well, slashing a tire.
Oh yeah, sorry, I just heard the end of that. So what they're talking about there, in case you were wondering, in case it's one of the things that you were like, oh, maybe they've got a point. There was a clip of Sky News, and a Muslim boy rides up to her on a bike, and they ended up deleting that thing, and they were like, oh, it's because it shows Muslim terrorists and thugs, but the fact is it was because he swore, and it was Ofcom. You had to delete it. It's not like a controversial or mysterious thing. But Tommy Robinson, all these ghouls, many of whom know this, by the way, again, they will present it as something that it's not on purpose, and the people that then share it don't know any better.
Attacking a police officer.
Are you seeing the pattern?
And yet, I'd said at 10 o'clock this morning, someone will come on the show today and try to claim that these are somehow equivalent. Let's focus on the point that you think these people are making. They're making the point that there has been too much illegal immigration.
Yeah.
Okay, and you think that...
I can explain the attacking of the police. See, the attacking of the police is because another lie that the right-wing grifters are spreading is that there's two-tier policing. And this is all part of, again, the same game plan, the same strategy of victimization. Because that's how you mobilize the community. As I was saying, the thing that it doesn't matter if facts are wrong, because there's community, because there's a sense of belonging, a sense of togetherness. And so you create this unity between them, and one of the ways that they're doing that is through victimhood. And so long before the riots even started, they started spreading this idea of two-tier policing, which was to suggest that white English people were going to get arrested, but Muslims weren't. And then, of course, that did happen a lot because Muslims were standing out trying to protect their mosques, and white English people were burning shops, attacking police officers, and setting fire to hotels with people inside. It's two-tier policing. It's all part of the strategy.
But watching police officers get attacked, hotels get set on fire, and shops get looted will make the mainstream media go, oh gosh, I think there are some people out there who think there's too much illegal immigration. But they don't know what the words illegal immigration actually mean, but they're certain that there's too much of it.
Well, every day we're seeing boats. I mean, I went fishing at Deal the other day, and you can see 3 or 4 boats come over every single day.
Creamy.
They're not women and children. They're not fleeing anything. They're fighting middle-aged.
Fighting aged men. Have you noticed this thing coming around as well? Do you know where that started? That was an American. Was it Trump? I think it was Trump or Musk. It was one of them. Started this term. Oh, again, they're all morons. They're uneducated, so they just parrot these things. Some of you may have seen me getting into it with transphobic turfs on Twitter, and I definitely talked about the hilarity of they all just keep saying the same things because they don't have any original thoughts. They're parroting what they're being fed by fucking grifters. It's insane. And this fighting age men thing was based on an alleged boat of like some Asian guys that came over, and I can't remember if it was Musk or Trump. We were just basically horny for them. Or be like, they're young and fit, they're fighting age men. The implication being that they're going to invade and take over the country, one boat of 16 people at a time. It's completely ridiculous. But people will, again, they're repeating this. He's repeating it earnestly, believing it.
How do you know they're not fleeing anything? Now, how do you know they're not fleeing anything?
Because they're throwing their passports into the water on their way here to claim illegal asylum.
That's not how it works. That's what they used to do when they were on air. That's what they used to do when they were on aeroplanes. So how do you work out, Aaron, whether they are bona fide asylum seekers or not?
Well, you'd need to go through the proper. At the end of the day, you can't come up on a rubber dinghy.
No, answer the question. Answer the question. How do you find out? Well, talk me through what the legal routes are before you go.
Legal routes are applying properly, isn't it, through visa?
How do you do that?
You can't just rock up on
Where do you
do
that? Where do you do that?
I honestly don't know because
But you have to know, Aaron. Do you see why you have to know? Because you're on national radio expressing strong opinions which are built on nothing. Tell me how you apply. Tell me how you apply for asylum in this country.
If I was to turn up on a beach
just tell me how you do it.
some other country,
tell me how you do it.
That would be illegal.
Well, how do you think they got to here? They've passed through loads of countries, mate.
Illegally.
Not illegally. They are asylum seekers until their application is processed. So tell me how you apply legally.
I don't know because I'm not an asylum seeker.
There we go.
You're so certain that they're bogus. You're so certain that they're fraudulent. You're so certain that they've got loads and loads of other choices.
Why? Why are they certain? Let's review, class. Have you all been taking notes? Everyone aware? Everyone remember? Why is he so certain? Because he heard it from a source he trusts. Now, is that source reliable? Of course not. Someone like Tommy Robinson. But Tommy Robinson will have said one thing at one point that sounded right to him. Would have said something like, we shouldn't be giving asylum seekers £1 billion each just when they arrive, put it right in their pockets the second they get off the boat. When nurses are underpaid. And Aaron here will have heard that and went, is that absolutely, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And then he'll have seen another thing saying, and we also shouldn't be given £1 gazillion a week to every mosque instead of, helping clean up the streets of the homeless, most of whom, by the way, are also asylum seekers. Now I've went that made up situation that if that were true, that would upset me. And I have no means of knowing if it's not true. And also, you said that last thing that sounded right. So you seem like a pretty reliable source of information here. And especially when it's not just one person, is it? It's not just Tommy Robinson. It's the Daily Mail. It's Nigel Farage. It's Facebook groups. It's Twitter chats. It is a constant barrage of insular misinformation and bullshit till you get to the point where this guy that we've just been listening to that has been denouncing the violence, that supports the protests but is outwardly saying it is wrong for them to be getting violent, to be kicking in Muslims' doors, all this stuff. He's a great example of someone that's trying to be a little more articulate, trying to be a little bit more reasonable. And yet, as has just been exposed there, will confidently say there's too many asylum seekers, there's too many illegal immigrants. And then when pressed, you realize they don't know what that means. They don't know what the process is. They don't know how many people are here illegally. They don't know what effect that has on the economy, on the local community, on any of these things. They don't know that. But they've been told it by so many people so often that it just seems like it must be true. And everyone around them believes it as well. That's how they do it. And that's why I'm trying really, really hard to not put the bulk of the blame of this at the feet of people like that. They've been lied to. In ways, yeah, it's messed up.
And I ask you what those choices are, and you say,
"Hi, water dog."
Well, what are the statistics for the amount of illegal immigrants that have come over here?
I've told you. I've told you that the rough average is between 70 and 80% of applications processed will be found to be valid.
That's too much, you know.
What do you mean that's too much? That's counting. That is saying,
and again,
are you a genuine refugee? And the answer, after very, very stringent testing.
So there you go. You've got two more arguments. If you think that's too many people that are valid in trying to be a refugee, then maybe we need to look at global politics. Why are there so many refugees? Why are there so many people fleeing places of terror and bigotry, which, you know, these cunts are trying to turn England into? Why are there so many places like that? Can they not see the path that they're going down? And if your other point is we shouldn't be accepting that many people in from other countries, then that's fine. That's a political debate that we've been having for as long as I've been alive. People on both sides, like, you know, how much is too much? How many people do we take in? How many people do we not? Some people would argue we should absolutely take everyone in that wants to make their home here. We should do everything we can to help them. And some people will argue no, that it puts too much of a strain on the system. But that's a fair and honest debate that you can have. But when that then gets weaponized for profit into stoking the fires of hatred and bigotry to the point where we see some of the things we've seen in these English cities. And that's why it's not fair to just dismiss everything that people are saying. The same thing's happening in America, that a lot of the people that are voting for Trump, it's the same goddamn thing. They're doing it for a reason. And yes, some of them will be doing it because they're openly racist. But a lot of them will be doing it because they have fears and concerns that they don't feel acknowledged for and supported for. And they're misinformed and they are misled and they don't understand the means of which to get out of that loop because they don't know they're in a bubble. And it can lead to very, very dangerous situations.
Now, as a consequence of the political environment that you're part of, the answer comes back, yes, you are a genuine refugee.
Yeah, I don't know. All I'm saying is, you know, you're spreading misinformation.
What misinformation?
The misinformation that everyone that's against illegal immigration is just racist.
Just run me by when I said that.
Earlier, you're constantly just saying,
tell me what I said.
The fascists.
Yeah, the rioters.
You know,
I'm talking about the rioters and the people that have incited them. I'm against illegal immigration. I think that when people's applications are found to not be valid, they should be removed from the country. So what's the misinformation
so you're
then?
For the Rwanda bill then?
No, those are people whose applications were found to be valid would have been sent to Rwanda or forced to stay in Rwanda.
We send these illegal immigrants? You're saying you want them out the country. Where are we sending them?
It doesn't matter, does it? You send them back to their country of origin because they will be safe there.
Are we doing that?
Well, we'd like to. But we can't because because the backlog of process of applications that haven't been processed as a consequence of conservative policy designed to appease people like the rioters and shall we say their fellow travellers has caused a bottleneck that Keir Starmer now has to sort out. So everything you've told, and just before you go, tell me what I've said that's not true.
well, saying that Tommy Robinson's inciting violence while these riots.
So why did he lie about? Why did he lie about a Muslim asylum seeker?
Not the start.
That's how the riots started, Aaron. Based on that racist lie, which he was one of the main architects of. Can I just clarify one thing?
Yep.
You were wrong about what immigration is. You were wrong about what illegal immigration is. You were wrong about incitement. You were wrong about what Tommy Robinson has and hasn't done. You were wrong about the rioters. You were wrong about my position. You were wrong about misinformation. Every single thing you've said in the last 20 minutes has been utterly unevidenced and wrong. But when we bid each other farewell, in my case, and I'm sure in yours politely, you'll still believe every single thing you believed when you rang me, won't you?
Because I see it with my own eyes, you know?
Yeah.
Like the two-tier policing.
Yeah.
You know, you can't tell me that doesn't exist and it's a myth. We all see it last night.
Right.
You know, we all see it. There was thousands, hundreds of Muslims and lots of other
How many hotels did they set fire to?
Out on the street.
How many hotels
None,
did they
but
set?
they raided pubs.
How many hotels did they set fire to? How many shops How many shops did they loot?
They raided pubs and took out white people and
Right, you are.
racially
And
attacked them.
you saw this on social media?
Yeah.
Which you said 15 minutes ago was the biggest problem in spreading lies and misinformation.
It's not a lie if it's there in front of you. You know, it's just the media
like the tweet about the Muslim asylum seeker killing those 3 little girls. It's not a lie because it was there in front of you.
Well, no, because this is a video right there in Birmingham,
right.
And you can see Sky News was there.
I saw
they
that
had
video.
to retreat.
I saw that video. They didn't have to retreat.
Did you see the police in that video?
Okay. So no hotels set on fire, no shops looted, no police attacked, but it's two-tier policing because the people who are looting shops, the people who are setting fire to hotels, the people who are throwing bricks at the police, they're getting collared, and the people who aren't doing any of those things aren't getting collared. Therefore, there must be two-tier policing.
Did you see it last night? There wasn't any police on that news report.
Well, how can there be two-tier policing if there aren't any police there, Aaron? Love to the family. It's 10:38.
So there we go. I've been on ranting about this for much longer than I expected to. Like I say, I'll probably make a little video. It will probably just be my monologue at the start. As I said earlier, and I do mean it, if you see any of this stuff and it sounds like it's making sense to you, if you ever hear any, you don't need to come to me. If you've got other people, great. But if you ever hear any dog whistles, if anyone ever says something that sounds like it makes sense to you but might be slightly problematic, you know, just as a hint of misogyny or racism or bigotry, but it makes sense, question it. You're not going to know everything. We're all ignorant about so much stuff. So if someone says something and it makes sense to you, but you have a slight tinge of like, oh, that's weird that makes sense to me. Look into it. Talk to someone. If you have a friend that you think might know more or you think might disagree with you on this, talk to them. Doesn't mean you're always going to change your mind. Doesn't mean you're always wrong. But we're all ignorant. And if we don't want to see the world descend into chaos and division, we need to look out for each other and we need to call out ignorance when we can. Not in an aggressive, accusatory way, in a compassionate and patient way. We need to address the problems, the faucet of toxic sludge that leads to people being in these places, not the fucking primordial ooze creature that crawls out from them. We need to cure the disease, not treat the symptoms. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, thank you all for listening to me rant. Thank you all for coming in the chat, whether you're asking me questions or just saying hello to Creamy's dog. And thank you for keeping each other entertained when I was going off on one. And yeah, thank you for indulging me. this stuff really upsets me, and like I say, I couldn't sleep last night, and so I felt like I needed to do that. So apologies if it seemed too. I don't know if it wasn't your thing. I thank you for being here, and especially if you don't agree with everything I've said. I appreciate you opening yourself up to that stuff. And yeah, if any of this happens near where you are, if there is honest political concerns, those need to be addressed. But right now we're being convinced to aim at each other. It is like I'm very free Palestine, right? But if I saw someone being anti-Semitic, I would absolutely step the fuck in, because that's not the same thing. If you're someone that thinks we should have less migration in the UK, then fair enough. That's an honest political debate that we can have, and I probably disagree with you, but whatever. That in itself is not a hateful stance to take. There's a big jump and a leap to then going and attacking places of worship, innocent people in their homes, dragging them out of their cars, and setting fires to hotels that are housing refugees that have flown, like tried to escape from war-torn countries. Attacking police. Don't let anyone convince you that this is remotely balanced or justified. And if you hear anyone saying stuff like this, talk to them. Pull them up, because again, too many people are getting drip fed in their bubble, and it's not entirely their fault. And I don't know exactly the way to fix it, but one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stop being tolerant of these right-wing grifters. I'm going to start calling them out more aggressively. I don't know what the answer is. But yeah, thank you all for listening to my rant. Well, you're not like most people, Miko. I respect that. Thank you, Creamy. And I think most people are grateful that I'm not like them as well. But yeah, thank you everyone that came in the chat. Big love to you all. I'm going to go and drink wine and have barbecue now, and try and calm myself down. Please take care of yourself, especially my English friends and Scottish friends. Fucking resist. If you hear of any of this shit coming up, yeah, no, it's not happening. English friends, until this dies down, which I'm sure it will, please take care of yourself. Trans friends, you've been in this fight for a while. You know to take care of yourself. American friends, Jewish friends, Palestinian friends, don't let the fear turn to anger. It's not an us or them. It doesn't have to be that. And you're not alone in your fear. You're not alone in your struggle. And we can prove that to each other and to ourselves. All right. All right. Be a good cunt. Night night. Love you all. Bye bye.